Wednesday, September 27, 2023, and we'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. You can join today's board meeting via phone. Dial 971-254-3149. Conference ID 736-023-979#. Audio capabilities are listen only and are offered on a best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us by going online to tctvonline.com and click on live broadcasts. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute their phone. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras off. Thank you. Public comment. Those intending to provide public comment to the board may attend in person or email submissions to publiccomments@co.tillamook.or.us. Public comments received by 12 p.m. on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To please email publiccomments@co.tillamook.or.us by 12 p.m. on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners Office, 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon, 97141. For more information on public comments, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. Do we have anyone in the room signed up for public comment today?
We do not.
And anyone online?
We do not.
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, well, for all of you who are in the room, welcome. We're delighted to have you with us today and hope that you have all had a chance to sign the guest list. And we will begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Bell, would you lead us today?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have established there are no public comments. We do have one unscheduled agenda item, which we will take after item number 15. And we will jump right in then to our legislative and administrative agenda with item number 5, which is discussion and consideration of a resolution in the matter of proclaiming October 2023 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Tillamook County, Oregon. We have with us a number of people today. I have Beth Hope, the Community Response Coordinator for Tides of Change, is presenting this. So if you want to come on up to the table, Beth, and I don't know if anybody else is coming with you, but we would like to.
I also have with me Erin Richardson, who's our coordinator of health programs.
Wonderful.
Oh,
Good morning to you both.
thank you. Let me first get you your chocolate.
I love it when you come in.
And Erin thought it was just because you liked it.
Well, that too, of course.
And I'll let you can have
Thank you.
bracelets, ribbons.
Oh,
all
good,
those
because I
things.
broke last year's. It wore
Oh,
out.
and you still have one on your.
I do. That's my permanent one.
Yeah. There's other things. I get your rest.
Hey, wait a
Is
minute.
there more chocolate in there? Wait a minute.
There might be more chocolate in there. And we also have, I don't know if you want to, since you're turning around, Jane, we also have Shelby McKillop, Monica Bernal, and Charmaine Polizzi. I hope I said her name right. So as you mentioned, we are from Tides of Change, and we are, October again is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we just had a few things that we wanted to mention before we read the proclamation, if that's okay, unless you want us to do it in the other order.
No, please go right ahead.
First of all, I, as a person who's 100% grant funded by an Office on Violence Against Women rural grant that we've had since 2017, we just had word on, I just met with the Sheriff's Office doing a training on Monday for our advocacy initiated response protocol and also strangulation, and told them that I didn't know as of Monday afternoon if I was going to have a job on the following Monday, because this grant that we're under, that I work under, and ended on September 30th. government, hopefully no one is watching. Federal government is really, really good at letting you know at the last minute whether grant funds, you probably all know this. But when I got home, I got a text message from Valerie Bundy, who is out of town at a conference, a national conference. And the grant was authorized for another 3 more years. So that was very exciting.
That is awesome.
Erin was one of the people who was sure we would get it. I was one of the people who was sure we would not. It also funds 100% a position in our office, Maggie, who is our person who bilingual bicultural, answers the phone and answers the door for everyone who comes in. Wonderful to have someone who speaks Spanish to do that. It also funds a 0.5 detective position with the sheriff's office, and we are really grateful to be able to offer that again. And as far as grant reporting with you goes, we also have started a new program. I think we mentioned this probably at Sexual Assault Awareness Month, is a sexual assault first examiner program, and that is something that we are also working on. We do have Dr. Michael Halfordy is going to be the medical director for that program. We have some applicants for the program director position. That needs to be an RN, and so we have some applicants for that. Even maybe a couple local people, which would be really exciting, because then they don't have to worry about finding a place to live. It's always the key here. And we have already have some SANEs who are signed up to do training for it, so we're really excited about that. And then as far as the rest of what we're doing for sexual assault, wrong month, October, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We have a couple we don't have an official event. Oh, I can tell you the really, really good news. We will have the Soup Bowl. We had hoped to do it in this month, in October, but we just couldn't do it. It'll be in the spring. But we're really, really glad. We've heard lots of community members who are really anxious for that event to happen again. And it is a fundraiser, but I think more than being a fundraiser, people don't like to leave. They like to come and sit and have soup and take home a wonderful bowl and do all of those things, but really getting the community together is really, really the big thing. And so that will happen in the spring. We're very excited about that. So in the midst of trying to figure out everything to do, we don't have like a special DBAM event, but we're doing a couple things. One is businesses are again lighting up their, they can put lights in their window. I know that last year, Pacific Restaurant nearly always participates. And I also wanted to mention, we also get great support from law enforcement. Matt Kelly Undersheriff Matt Kelly told the officers Monday, the deputies Monday, that they can wear either purple for DVAM or they can wear pink for breast cancer awareness this month, and that's always, we really appreciate that. And I know a lot of the guys, like you have your sticker, they have a purple or a teal sticker on their uniform somewhere. And a lot of the businesses in the area, I know that Norma said she put together probably about 100 of these bags, and quite a few of them are going to businesses who will light up. We also have purple light bulbs that individuals can buy for $5 as support for the people that we serve. And those are just for your board if you want to buy one at our office. Those are available. And then the other event is that Erin is going to talk about is Health Cares About Domestic Violence. And I don't remember what I did with those flyers, but I'll give you.
I think they could be in the back.
They could be in the bag. Oh wait, I have them.
So, Health Cares About Domestic Violence Day is a nationally recognized day that happens on the second Wednesday in October of every year. So this year it's going to be on October 11th, Wednesday. And it's a day that promotes healthy relationships through universal education, really stressing the importance of partnership between healthcare agencies and domestic and sexual violence agencies. And it works on promoting universal education as well as addressing all of the negative impacts that domestic violence and abuse occurs in our patient population. And this year, as in last year, it's awesome to note that every single healthcare partnership that we have in Tillamook County is participating in support of survivors. And they're hanging flyers that say, like, in this clinic, we know that domestic violence affects your health, so that people know it's a safe place to be able to access help if need be. They also are wearing buttons that say Health Cares About Domestic Violence, and they have They post pictures on their websites and tag us on social media. So that is on the 11th, so that's exciting. Home care all across the county is participating this year, so,
Awesome.
yeah, it's very cool.
Be a busy month.
Yeah, it's fun. It's great though. We've had an ongoing partnership with healthcare for over a decade now, and it's just been growing and growing and growing, so we are proud of that.
Yes, and I think that one of the things that we are so grateful that this grant is continuing is because of the partnerships that we have with agencies in the county. I know that one of the newer partnerships that we've really developed is with Tiffany Miller and the 911 dispatch. It is a critical center point for everything that happens in the county, and we really depend on it, our advocates depend on it, because we have our advocacy initiated response. What happens with that is, and we are the only county in Oregon, one of the few in the United States that use this protocol. When an officer responds to a domestic violence call, they get information from the victim in that case. They get permission from the victim to call our office, and they actually call an advocate, and the advocate calls the victim within an hour. And so the response is immediate. We know that gives them a chance, maybe while the perpetrator has gone to jail or is in custody or whatever, there's a chance for them to get some information about what options are available to them. And so we have partnerships with Manzanita Police Department, the City of Tillamook Police Department, the Sheriff's Office. In fact, we have just discovered that Oregon State Police, we don't know that they have copied our protocol and the DV supplemental that our deputies and officers use in our county that Paul Binford wrote when he was here as a district DDA. But he worked with our office to develop that form, and Matt Kelly and Josh Brown at the Sheriff's Office have continued that work. But I like to think that we were the ones who influenced OSP to do this. That's just my opinion. Don't quote me, but I think it's really cool that it's really, especially with this rural grant, we are doing things in Tillamook County for survivors of domestic violence that are light years ahead of many other rural agencies. We probably have the highest, well, I know we have more than half of our staff are bilingual and bicultural, which means we can serve everyone in the county. And we are doing things that are new and cutting edge that are really surprising to the people outside of our county. Not just outside of our county, but in the healthcare partnerships too. In the past, Erin has been a part of teams who've gone and presented at national conferences about the programs that we use here. So we're really proud of the things that we do. And if you wouldn't mind reading our resolution and making the little correction that Isabel noted that.
Yes,
Needed to
we've
be
got that.
done.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioners, comments?
Thank you so much for being here today. Sure. Thank you so much for being here today, everybody. It's nice to see the room full of people. And I appreciate the opportunity to declare October Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It's an important topic. I think that it's in the best interest of our community to talk about it regularly, to normalize it, to say this is happening. It's sad, and we don't probably talk about it enough. It's sad, and it's unfortunately common. And a lot of people are being served through the organization, through Tides of Change, and I think I think I talked about this last year when we declared Domestic Violence Awareness Month. That as someone who I think of myself as a humanist, I care about people, and yet the first time I heard the statistics about how many women, American women, are impacted by domestic violence and sexual assault, I thought, that can't be right. You know, just like in general, I think people are not aware of how prevalent it is, how common it is, and in general, as a society, we're in denial, including people like me who think that I'm trying to pay attention to issues that impact humanity. And still, I thought to myself, that can't be right. That number is way too high. So it's just something that we have to keep talking about to bring it to people's awareness, so that we can't impact change in something that we're in denial of. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Commissioner?
Thank you. And Tides of Change, thank you so much for being here. As always, you keep coming back and reminding us of these issues, which we don't like to think about these issues, especially in a small county like Tillamook County. But it does happen. It right in your proclamation, the prevalence of domestic violence is often underestimated. And I think that's so true. It's something that we can't forget. Still happens, even in our small rural Tillamook County. And it's important that we continue to bring these issues up. I want to divert just a little bit from this. I hope you don't mind, Madam Chair. But when I announced my early retirement, Beth Hope sent me a very nice email reminding me of my early days as a commissioner, my early tenure. She mentioned to me that you came before this board and talked about CSEC, the commercial sexual exploitation of children. That was a time that we started a back and forth conversation in our board meeting, talking about that. You reminded me of that, and I'm so sorry that I have just let that conversation slip. But Beth, I'm going to ask you and Tides of Change to come back at another board meeting, hopefully very soon, absolutely before I leave office, so that we can have this public discussion again. Children in our society that are sexually exploited is something to me that is just abhorrent. It is. And it is happening in Tillamook County, especially most recently with the homeless population rising in Tillamook County. I just know there are things going on in this county. And you reminded me so nicely of that in your very nice email to me. So I wanted to make a point of, before I leave, hopefully you can come back with Tides of Change and we can just have this conversation again. We can't let these types of conversations stop. We can't, because then people don't understand that there is still a problem here. It's not getting better. It's not. I've had conversations with Matt Tennell out of our juvenile department. We need to bring the sheriff's office and the DA and the Tillamook Police Department back into the conversation. So again, I'm sorry for diverting off of this very important topic that we're talking about today. Beth, I'm hoping that you and Tides of Change will come back and we can have another conversation about this soon. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for allowing me to get off topic.
Certainly, absolutely, another important topic, and we'll look forward to that conversation. So I feel like I say the same thing every time that we have Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I probably won't go into my whole big story as I normally do about, one of my first jobs in Tillamook, being at Tides of Change. So I'll just suffice to say that a lot of passion for the mission, that I have so much respect and really awe for those of you who do this work every single day. One of the most crucial things for me that I learned in my time there is that the whole world is always asking the wrong question, which is why doesn't she leave, instead of why doesn't he stop? And I will probably say that every time, because to me that was the most crucial question. And we should all be asking ourselves why we as a society don't make the violence stop, instead of asking the victim just to find a way to make themselves safe. So I will leave my piece of the message there, but just to tell you how much I again appreciate and honor the work that you do, and absolutely, let's make this sure that we do this every year, because we need to keep it at top of mind. Thank you. Commissioner, would you like to read the proclamation as our motion
I
today?
would be glad to do that. Thank you. Madam Chair, on the matter of proclaiming October 2023 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Tillamook County, Oregon, this being Board Resolution number R-23-019. This matter came before the Tillamook Board of County Commissioners on September 27, 2023, at the request of Tides of Change, formerly the Tillamook County Women's Resource Center. The board, being fully apprised of the representations of the above-named entity, finds as follows. 1. Domestic violence, also known as intimate partner violence, is a serious public health crisis with life-altering consequences for survivors, children, families, and communities. 2. Although the prevalence of domestic violence is often underestimated, CDC reports that almost 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have experienced physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. 3. The 2022-2023 Domestic Violence Awareness Month theme, Shine a Light for Survivors, celebrates the resilience and courage of survivors, their children, their extended families, who together are the victims. 4. In addition, Shine a Light for Survivors celebrates the resilience of those who support and serve survivors throughout Tillamook County. Law enforcement, healthcare providers, schools, mental health providers, advocates, prosecutors, and the courts, food and meal providers, churches, transportation providers, housing, and other social service agencies, the communication district, businesses, and countless individuals. 5. Domestic Violence Awareness Month serves as a reminder of the long-term consequences of domestic violence for individuals and the community and the necessity of bringing it to the forefront of community awareness. 6. Shine a Light for Survivors celebrates community members who are invited to participate in awareness activities, demonstrate support of survivors, join journeys of healing and resilience, work to create positive change in the world, and participate in the movement to end domestic violence. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that 7, the Tillamook Board of County Commissioners hereby proclaims the month of October 2023 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Tillamook County. 8, the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners encourages all citizens to join in the observance of Domestic Violence Awareness Month to discover and carry out what they can do to prevent and end gender-based violence, support victims and survivors, and honor the advocates who serve their survivors. This dated the 27th day of September 2023. I would move approval.
And I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you very
Thanks for
much.
being here.
We'll see you back soon.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Moving on to item number 6, discussion and consideration of an intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Department of Forestry, Tillamook District, for the protection of natural resources and safety for state forest land users. Matt Kelly, Under Sheriff. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
First item for your consideration is a continuation of an intergovernmental agreement with the ODF and Tillamook County Sheriff's Office. This is work hand in hand with our contract with ODF. ODF provides partial funding for 3 deputies. Their primary duties is to patrol the Tillamook State Forest, deal with issues, ATV, theft of forest products, damage to state lands, and so forth. This agreement allows the deputies to enforce ODF specific rules, especially specific to damaging woods, trash, overstays, stuff like that. And that's kind of the Cliff Notes version of the agreement.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Questions or comments, commissioners?
Thank you. I think it's really important. It's an important partnership because there's so much forest in Tillamook County. There's no way that sheriff's deputies can patrol all that forest without this. There's no way that we can control all the forest with the agreement, but certainly without it, we would be in a worse position, as would the state forest. So I'm really grateful that we're able to do this work. I'm grateful for the partnership.
Sheriff Kelly, thank you so much for being here. Yeah, we have the largest state forest in the state of Oregon, Tillamook State Forest, right in our backyard. And people from all over love to come and recreate, sometimes possibly getting out of hand. So it's important that we have some law enforcement in those areas. This partnership with the Department of Forestry in Tillamook County and Sheriff's Office is imperative, it really is. So we appreciate everything you do, and we're hoping that in the future, maybe we won't need this intergovernmental agreement. Unfortunately, I don't think I see that happening.
I was gonna say, wow, what's your
But-
future look like?
It certainly would be nice. But Matt, go forth and prosper here, please. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, this is a critical contract, with 83% of Tillamook County's lands being forest land and 53% of that being state forest land. That is just a huge, huge slice of our community. And it is well utilized between our hunters and our OHV riders and our hikers. There's a lot of people out there, and of course, our campers, and as those experiencing homelessness, those numbers rise, we get those campers out there as well. It's just, there's a lot going on, a lot of illegal dumping, just tons of things that I know you guys have to get involved with, and appreciate very much the contract and the ability to have that extra coverage. So thank you for your work to make this happen.
Madam Chair, ready for a
I
motion?
believe we are.
Madam Chair, in consideration of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Forestry, Tillamook District, for the protection of natural resources and safety for the state forest land users, I would move approval.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, item number 9, discussion and consideration of an out-of-state travel request for Chris Barnett to attend the 2023 Clackamas County Sheriff's Office Dive Week training in Hoodsport, Washington, October 16th to October 20th, 2023. Matt Kelly.
With permission, I'd like to wrap up 9 and 10 because they're the same thing, just different names. Most people aren't really aware that Tillamook County Sheriff's Office has a dive team. We've had one in long-standing, and their proficiency is ebbed and flowed. There's been years they were quite well-equipped, well-trained, and then years they haven't. Right now, we're at a peak. We have 2 very motivated deputies, Chris Wood and Corporal Chris Barnett, and they are pretty passionate about this and have gone of their own doing to seek out training, seek out equipment. Corporal Barnett has made deals with other agencies that were cycling through old equipment that was top-of-the-line high-tech stuff, but Portland Fire Rescue or Tualatin Valley Fire, they're moving on from it, and we got it for free. So. And most people don't realize how dangerous when they get in the water and do this is. The current is extremely fast and it looks fine, but when they're under 5 feet of water, that current is ripping on them and they're trying to get to a vehicle to recover it or something like that. So my role in this is to try and promote them to do as much training as they can so they're safe doing this. And so they have an opportunity to go to this free training in Washington with Clackamas County Dive Team. And it's going to teach them new skills, make them more proficient in their current skills, and all we have to do is pay for their room and board, and we'll get our money back easily from that. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Questions or comments?
I think this is great, and I completely agree with you that every opportunity they have for training and equipment, et cetera, to help them in their jobs and keep them safe, I totally support that.
And I would have to concur. People don't realize that we have a dive team, as it were, and now we've got 2, so it's a dive team in Tillamook County. And keeping proficient is absolutely really important. So I'm in full support here, Matt.
As am I. We are the land of many waters, right? So it's one of those pieces to realize that unfortunately too often we have vehicles that end up in our rivers and spaces where we need to have a dive team. So I'm grateful that they're willing to do this. And as much as they've done on their own time and on the free stuff, we definitely should be supporting training wherever we can. I think we are ready for a motion.
Perfect. And County Council, so I would need to read each one of these individually.
Yeah, that would be best.
Perfect, thank you. Madam Chairman, consideration of an out-of-state travel request for Chris Barnett to attend the 2023 Clackamas County Sheriff's Office Dive Week training in Hoodsport, Washington, 10/16 to 10/20. I would move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. I think I need to read item 8 before you
Oh,
can move
thank
on
you.
to item
Yes,
8.
thank you so
Just
much.
logistical pieces here. So I am pleased to move on to item number 8. Discussion and consideration of an out-of-state travel request for Chris Wood to attend the 2023 Clackamas County Sheriff's Office Dive Week Training in Hoodsport, Washington, October 16th through the 20th, 2023. I think we are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of an out-of-state travel request for Chris Wood to attend the 2023 Clackamas County Sheriff's Office Dive Week Training in Hoodsport, Washington, October 16 through October 20. I would move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Great, thank you. Moving on to item number 9. Discussion and consideration of an order in the matter of declaring county-owned property as surplus. Matt Kelly.
Lastly, for me, we have a 2014 Ford F-150 that is over 120,000 miles on, so it's reached its end of life as it were to be effective in the sheriff's office. I have a close relationship with Tillamook County Parks. They're one of the first people I reach out to when we have vehicles that no longer can be useful to us, and they are interested in purchasing this vehicle. And knowing how they run their department, this will probably be in the fleet for the next 10, 15 years. It's still a good vehicle, it just can't work in emergency vehicle mode. But so that's before you is to dispose it, sell it to the county parks, and it'll still get a good 10, 15 years of use out of it.
Perfect, thank you. Questions or comments?
Thank you, Matt. As liaison to Parks, I heard all about this last weekend. They were thrilled. I heard about it from Joanne and Melissa, and they're so grateful that you reached out and offered this vehicle to them, and you're right, they're delighted to have it. And it's super helpful because of the backlog of new vehicles that they ordered new vehicles for Parks a couple of years ago that aren't in yet. And so they're just waiting and waiting and waiting. So they considered it a godsend that you are offering them this vehicle in the interim, because who knows when the vehicles they ordered are going to come in. So thank you.
I agree with Commissioner Bell fully. Great that you're not just putting this out for auction. You're looking at other counties within this county, other county departments within this county that might be able to utilize these vehicles. Yeah, 120,000 miles, almost 10 years old. You can understand why it won't suffice for a sheriff's deputy's vehicle, but other departments can certainly get a lot of use out of it. So again, appreciate what you do, and I'm in full support.
Okay, absolutely in agreement with my colleagues, so I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of an order in the matter of declaring county-owned property as surplus, this being board order number 23-064, I would move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Madam.
you, Commissioner.
Okay, moving on to item number 10, discussion and consideration of a grant application with Oregon Department of Corrections Community Corrections Program for Measure 57 supplemental funds for drug-addicted persons. And we have with us Lieutenant Ani Seaholm this morning, and it's her first item.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Connie.
Okay, so the Measure 57 plan, this is a separate grant that we apply for on a every other year rotation, and this is for property crimes and drug-addicted persons. This year we can apply for a hair over 74,000, or this biennium, excuse me. And this gets tied with other funding sources for various programs and services. What we'd be using it for would be for PO's salary and benefits, who would monitor this type of case, or this type of caseload, who would work with risk assessments and then do case referrals. It would also go to help provide costs for UAs, and then also sanction beds at the jail and incentives. So if you have any questions on that, and this is due in October, but it is tied into our whole biennial plan, which I'll be going into on the next agenda items.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments, Commissioner?
No, I think it's great. I think it's great that we can get the funding for those services. It's really important.
And again, this is an area of drug-addicted persons. Oftentimes it's kind of hidden, although maybe not quite as hidden as it used to be. But treatment and having dealings with drug addiction people is very difficult. It is. So having this grant would be a great help to you, Ani, and I am in full support here.
Perfect, as am I. I think this is crucial, and it looks like this may be in partnership with the specialty court. Does some of this get used with behavioral health court, or is that totally separate?
This would be separate, although if somebody, I mean, all of our funding gets kind of tied together
Yeah.
in one way or another, but yeah, this would be specific for a different PO. We have a certain PO that's the lead for behavioral health court, but of course, like some of the incentives and stuff, it can all get tied together.
Okay, perfect. Nope, it's great. The additional funding is definitely something we need. This is a population that we talk about too often. Those who have addiction issues lead to crime issues and lead to them being in our jail, when in fact, that may not be the best opportunity. So to have these funds and to have your folks be able to help them as they come out to hopefully not end up back there is really important. Item 4.
Ready for a motion. Madam Chair, in consideration of a grant application, Oregon Department of Corrections Community Corrections Program for Measure 57 supplemental funds for drug addicted persons, I would move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 11, discussion and consideration of the Tillamook County Community Corrections 2023-2025 biennial plan. Lieutenant.
Okay, so for the review and consideration, this is our biennial plan. So this, it kind of gets complicated. This is all of our funding sources into one plan. So we just heard the Measure 57. If that gets approved, then and that's already inputted in this plan. If it doesn't get approved, then I'd have to come back and do a modification. Our JRP grant is also in here, same thing. That's not being reviewed by the commission until October, mid-October. Hopefully we get those funds. If not, we'll come back and do a modification. We have various different funding sources that go to all sorts of things for community corrections, from supervision, so all the POs. Myself, we have 2 support staff. One's an office specialist, one's a PO tech, 3 POs that carry a full caseload. I carry a full caseload, and we have 1 open position for a PO. It also goes to all sorts of other programs. So we have a partnership with Tillamook Bay Community College. We do food handlers, cars. I wrote a list here so I wouldn't try to forget anything. Transitional needs, that's anything from possibly housing to if somebody needs a pair of work boots. Bus passes, we use those quite a bit. We have incentives and supports for the behavioral health court participants, and also incentives for our general population that we supervise. We have in the plan a behavioral health court jail supported UA program. That would be their assistance, meaning the deputy's assistance, to help us collect UAs. Jail supported Brighter Futures professional development program. That's part of our JRI or JRP application, which is working on resume building, interview skills, volunteer work while in the jail, and then they would leave with a resume, a certificate of completion. Court appointed or court appearance notification. We also have funds that come from JRI that go to Ties of Change. GPS, which would be electronic monitoring for an alternative sanction. And then we have an amount of funds that go straight to the jail to cover custody beds for the 1145 sanctions, which are those prison sentences that are less than 1 year that the county's responsible for housing, and then sanction beds, and then also community service work. So a lot of our funds, like I said, it's the programs are built from various different sources, and then also a lot of the funds also go to other divisions or agencies through treatment or like Ties of Change in the jail. So this is all of it in one document here. I'm more than happy to try to answer any questions you have of it. This would be submitted, if approved, to move forward to Department of Corrections, and like I said, if we have any issues with getting our funding through the other pending applications, then we'd come back with a modification. And I should say, sorry not to interrupt you, one of the other pieces to this is we're using a significant amount of carryover costs. Our grant and aid is our main funding source. We're only able to use that for funded cases. So we have a lot of unfunded cases that we supervise, and we have to use other funding mechanisms to be able to support that. And in 2021, I believe it was, Senate Bill 620 was passed, which eliminated the ability for all community corrections to collect supervision fees. And we utilized that and relied on that to offset those costs. We have some of that still in savings, and we're able to use that right now, but once that runs up, it's not something to depend on, I guess you could say. And then our grant and aid, which is a carryover, we've had cost savings with having open positions, which is not good. But it has provided us an opportunity to move forward with this plan right now because we're able to dip into those carryover costs to the amount of about $600,000 to $700,000. So it's pretty significant. We've had grant and aid wasn't funded. Well, it was funded at baseline, but it wasn't at the amount that we've seen in a prior biennium. And that's because they do this based off of snapshots. The state does based off of snapshots throughout the biennium and develop a snapshot of how many cases, funded cases, there are in the state of Oregon. That's where the funding gets built based off of. And then each county, they do that per county. So overall, the state has had a decline in funded cases. Our county has had a significant decline in funded cases. So the pie has shrunk, and then our piece of the pie essentially has shrunk. So just throwing that out there because depending on how the snapshots go this biennium, we may be having to look at things a little differently. But for right now, using our carryover, we're able to make this plan work.
Perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Questions and comments, commissioners?
That's a disturbing scenario. Do you have thoughts or ideas about when the carryover funding has been used, is no longer available, about how else to fund these programs?
Especially for the non-funded cases, no, because we're not able to use grant and aid for non-funded cases. So especially for that carryover that we have in supervision fees, we'd have to look at if there's other grants. JRI is able to fund those unfunded cases. So part of that plan is including supervision of like our DUI caseload, because that can go to property, drug, or driving crimes. So that is a piece, but it's not a whole piece. We don't get any county general fund, as you all know, and so that would be something that would be able to help offset those costs for those unfunded cases if we were to still take those. So.
Can I ask a question on that? So from the state's perspective, because they obviously have a reason or way they're looking at this, are they assuming when we say unfunded that they're ones that we just wouldn't supervise, or are they assuming that we have other money?
So if we do not have other money, we do not have a way to supervise those cases. A lot of counties will not take certain misdemeanor cases that are unfunded.
Okay, so those aren't mandated services for us. They're things we do because it's the right thing to do for our community to make sure that folks get the support they need and don't reoffend, but they're not required cases.
Right, so funded cases are any felony cases, drug misdemeanor cases, and just, I want to say a year ago, I'm going to have the date probably wrong, Senate Bill 497, I believe it was, passed, and that provided funding for assault for misdemeanor cases that were constituting domestic violence. And it has to be very specific in the judgment, or menacing cases that were a misdemeanor that were constituting domestic violence, and then also included some sex offenses that were misdemeanors. We had already taken those, but they were unfunded until here about a year ago.
I think there's a really important part of the conversation that we're going to be having as county government, which is an untenable conversation and one we should never have to have. But as we look at the potential for the HCP to strip revenues away from our community, we have services in our general fund that are not mandated, but they're really important. And I think the unfortunate part of where we are beginning to walk is into a part of our community where we may have to make really untenable decisions, which are, is it mandated? Can we apply general fund, and is it not mandated? Can we find other funding, or do we have to stop doing it? And that's not a place that any of us want to be, but it is a place that I fear that we are being pushed by the state of Oregon and by what may happen with our timber revenues. So I hear you loud and clear, Ani, that we do not want to be without those services, and that the state has made decisions about what they will and won't fund in our corrections that are going to come back to us to try to find an answer for at a time we're trying to find a bunch of answers for other things they're making us do without funding. So just kind of an opportunity to talk a little bit about that in the context of the importance of all of these services and the lack of funding that we may be facing. So, I'm sorry, were you done with your questions?
Almost. It's interesting, this topic is interesting because we talk about unfunded mandates, the things the state requires us to do but doesn't provide funding, but this isn't that. This is that the state isn't requiring funding and they're saying that it's not a mandate, we just don't have to do it. Well, what does that really look like if we don't supervise people who need supervision? What does that look like for our community? So I think you're making the right decision to supervise them while you can, while we have the funding in carryover funds. But it's distressing to think about that the state made the decision for Oregon that those crimes are not important.
Mm-hmm.
Curious.
And that's been, I mean, as far as I've been with the Sheriff's Office of Community Corrections, that's always been, you know, they've always just funded felonies, and then it's kind of changed with, like, the first time when felony drug cases went to misdemeanors, those evolved because we already had those type of cases. So it's my understanding since before I ever started in this position that it was something that we worked out between us and the judges and the DA's office of those other cases that were not funded that we would take because of a community safety risk. But of course, if there's no way to continue to take those, then that would be the concern.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Difficult questions moving forward. We do have unfunded mandates from both the state and the federal government, and now we have the state telling us there are things that are no longer mandated, and yet, really, to small communities such as Tillamook County, extremely important. So, and at the same time, the state is now pushing the Habitat Conservation Plan, which is going to cut deeply into the counties and the 20 special districts that rely on timber revenue. It's going to cut those available funding by a large portion. So we're in the middle of a storm. We are. Again, I think we're going to be okay for the next year or two. But it's after that, if this HCP goes into effect as it's currently written, we need to be very careful moving forward. We do. I'm glad to see that LIPSIC, the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council, Nick Troxel is the current chair, acting chief of police with the city of Tillamook, and they have reviewed all of this, and it's important that we do have review from the professionals, not only the sheriff's office, but coming from the DA's office and courts and commissioners. So I am in full support here. This is, if I read this correctly, Ani, I think we're talking almost $3 million in total, and that sounds like a lot of money, and it is. But all the things that you and the sheriff's office do for this county, I mean, it's not a lot of money. It's really not. There are things that we really do need to do that we can't fund, and that's going to get worse moving into the future. So this is just kind of an informational conversation with the public, letting them know that things are not going to get better. They may be getting worse, so we all need to pay attention. But I'm in full support of this, Ani. Thank you.
Yeah, and Ani, it was great to see this plan. It was to have it all in one place. You know, it's been my own sort of scattered pieces of what you all do, and to see what Community Corrections is doing all in one place in this plan was pretty awe-inspiring. So thank you for that, and the amount of other grant funds that Community Corrections brings in to make sure that we can do the work that we do. So just great job on all of that, and 100% in support. I'm pleased that LIPSIC is in support. So we will approve the plan, and then we also have, I believe, a letter of support for the plan specifically that we will take up right after the plan. We're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of the Tillamook County Community Corrections 2023-2025 biennial plan, I would move approval.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, we are going to jump to item number 14, which is discussion and consideration of a letter in support of the Oregon Department of Community Corrections for the 2023-2025 Community Corrections Plan. And I understand Commissioner Belli, you will carry that for us.
I will speak to it briefly, and in fact, Commissioner Yamamoto just mentioned it. And that is that the LIPSIC, the local community, oh, it just flew out of my head, County Public Safety Coordinating Council has reviewed the plan and supports the plan, as do we. So basically, that's it. That LIPSIC has reviewed the plan, supports the plan. The Board of County Commissioners, has reviewed the plan and supports the plan. And from us, it goes to Community Corrections. So I'll pass it over to Ani in case there's anything else about that.
No, I appreciate it, and I did forget to mention, so I appreciate that you did at the local Public Safety Coordinating Council had reviewed and provided the letter, so.
Thank you.
Perfect. If there are no other questions, since we've just had a good, robust discussion, I think we're ready for a motion.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair. Consideration of a letter of support for the Oregon Department of Community Corrections for the 2023-2025 Community Corrections Plan. I would move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, we are circling back to item 12, which is discussion and consideration of an intergovernmental agreement number 6547 with the State of Oregon Department of Corrections for the implementation and operation of county corrections programs. Ani.
So, this is the intergovernmental agreement for our grant and aid, which is tied into the biennial plan that we just went over, and then inmate welfare fund. And that's a small additional piece of funding that they provide us, and it's also in that plan. And it can be utilized for anybody releasing from Department of Corrections for their first 6 months. I think we get like less than $5,000 for the biennium, and with housing costs and trying to place people, that's where most of that is spent. We utilize a lot of motels locally for people when they're transitioning out, because we don't have places to put them unless we give them a tent. So that eats that up quite quickly. So that's in the plan. So basically with the IGA, we attach the biennial plan that was just approved within the IGA, and then that gets submitted to the state.
Perfect, thank you.
Great.
Questions or comments, Commissioner?
I do not.
Ani, when the $5,000 runs out, we can't just throw these people out on the streets. So I know you probably try to find other accommodations for them.
Yeah, so again, that's one of those things that we piece together using other funding sources to try to place them somewhere or provide other needs. Everybody has different needs that they need when they release out, and so if we can provide that and it's going to make an impact for them to stay on the right track, we try to do that, but we have to be mindful too as far as what we have for funding. So
Thank you for that.
Perfect. I had a conversation yesterday with Mike Davis from Helping Hands, who's their current CEO, and he expressed that they are ready to finish that second floor at Helping Hands, which I know we're all hopeful will be a resource, an expansion of the resource that's available there. And then, of course, as CARE opens their low barrier shelter, hopefully that will also be a resource that will kind of stretch your dollars for people who, aren't ready to be in permanent housing yet. With their plan. So fingers crossed that both of those come to fruition quickly and can be a support. So I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, consideration of intergovernmental agreement number 6547 with the State of Oregon Department of Corrections for the implementation and operation of county corrections programs. I would move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Ani.
Thank you.
thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, moving on to item number 13, discussion and consideration of adopting Tillamook County's 5-year strategic plan to address houselessness, and I will carry this one. We received funding about a year and a half ago, I think now, through House Bill 4123 to create a coordinated homeless services system in Tillamook County, and one of the required deliverables from that grant was a 5-year strategic plan. So that is what we have in front of us today. This plan was created in a partnership with the county, all 7 incorporated cities, CARE and other social service agencies. Law enforcement was at the table from the county and the city as well. So it was a community-generated plan of what are the gaps and what are the needs and how we should approach them. So in front of you today is that 5-year strategic plan. We've talked about it a bit in a board briefing, so I won't go into a lot of detail and depth on it. But I am pleased to share that CARE has hired a staff person who will be leading the implementation of the strategic plan, as well as a sort of a county opportunity to get it out to people so they can have information and provide comments. So that person starts October 2nd at CARE. We're very hopeful that we'll be able to kind of jumpstart moving this forward through the community with a lot of visibility. I know there's been some questions about that. Questions or comments, Commissioners?
I think this is terrific. We have talked about it at length in previous meetings, so I'm not going to go into it in depth again, but I really appreciate the approach to bring the cities and the county into a discussion to come up with a county-wide solution that honors that different communities have different needs, and yet we all have the same issue to address. And so it was unusual, and I thought really forward-thinking to develop a strategic plan in concert with the cities and the county. And I really appreciate all the work that's gone into it. I'm glad that CARE hired someone to move it forward, because that's going to be necessary. And also, I heard the rumor, maybe you can confirm, that CARE has finally hired a new director. Is that true?
They have a new executive director. He started about 2 weeks ago. I had a chance to meet with him briefly and look forward to spending a little more time with him. But yes, Jeff Blackford is now on board at CARE.
That's fabulous.
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I appreciate, there has been so much work going into this. A lot of different people, Commissioner Scar leading that charge. And I appreciate that very much. This is something that, again, we hate to think about this, but I've been going through trying to find a rental as we speak. And I know how difficult that is. I was possibly going to be homeless myself in the next week or two. I think I got lucky, found some place to rent. But houselessness is not funny. It really is not. This is a serious thing, especially when we have families and children. So again, I appreciate all the work so many people have done for this, and I am
Perfect, thank you. I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of adopting Tillamook County's 5-year strategic plan to address houselessness, I would move approval.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item number 15, discussion and consideration of a modification number 1 to personal services agreement with Civic Plus LLC for Civic Clerk Agenda Management System Services. Rachel Haggerty.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Civic Plus is a new software program that we are very excited to be rolling out, hopefully in November. It will serve as, it's a cloud-based system that will support all of the agenda item submissions, minutes, live meetings. We'll have a portal, citizens can go on and subscribe to meeting announcements, etc. So it's going to be really cool. We've been working on it for quite a while, as you can imagine, and balancing workloads and trying to get a whole new process right. It takes a lot of time. We are on the home stretch. So before you today is what the annual cost is of the system. So there was the startup cost, that was the original agreement. We knew there were going to be annual costs. Before you today is that annual cost of an additional $14,826 being paid out of the Board of Commissioners Fund, which is a budgeted item. And so we are just excited to keep this moving along. And I would like to thank Isabel. She has been spending an extraneous amount of hours getting this right. So thank you, Isabel, for all your work on this.
Thank you,
Great
Isabel.
consideration.
Yes, thank you, Isabel. All right. Wonderful, exciting. Questions, Commissioners, or comments?
Thank you also, Rachel, for your work and your leadership in this, and it is exciting. I'm looking forward to, typically, I don't look forward to learning new systems, but I think this one has great potential, and it'll benefit all of us, so thank
People
you.
like this one.
Gaining efficiencies in this county is really important. Commissioner Bell mentioned, learning new software systems is not always the easiest thing to do. I'm still struggling with our phone system. But be that as it may, I think this is going to make a huge difference. People don't realize all the work that comes out of the commissioner's office. It's just staggering the amount of work that gets done. And we have a small staff, only 3 commissioners, and yet the amount of workload that comes out of this office is huge. So I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a game changer for the commissioner's office, and allow Rachel to do even more than she does currently, because she'll have all this additional time, right?
I was just thinking though, depending on when you actually leave, you might not have to learn this new
I might
software.
not.
Wow, I'm probably going to determine his.
That could,
Maybe we'll
right?
wait to roll it out.
But I am in full support here.
Wonderful, as am I. And if I understand correctly, this is going to change the way that not only the commissioner's office works, but it's going to change how we interact with other departments around the agenda items for this meeting. And right now, that's a huge body of work for our office because we receive the agenda item request, we receive the materials, and we physically are printing and copying and handling and arranging all of that work and making sure that it's there. And if I understand correctly, this is going to move us into an electronic age where the materials can be submitted and very easily organized and managed. So it will make a huge difference, again, not only for the commissioners, but for the department heads that we are working with in doing this meeting every week and the work of this meeting, because how those ultimate contracts get signed and processed and all of that is just a huge body of work. Everything for the county has to be recorded in the clerk's office. I mean, there's a huge process that goes with government transparency. That this is a really great step in just streamlining that. So very excited to have it on board. We're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of modification number 1 to personal services agreement with Civic Plus LLC for Civic Clerk Agenda Management System Services, I would move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, we have one unscheduled item, which is discussion and consideration of a letter of engagement with Piper Sandler and Company for the general obligation bonds for the radio system construction project. Rachel Haggerty.
We are making great progress on the construction strategy for building the new public safety radio communication system that's countywide. The new price tag is $27 million, and that is a number that considers a 2025 design, bid, permit, construction timeline, which would be about a 3-year timeline in total. As you know, we've secured $2 million from Wyden Merkley's office from the 22 congressionally directed spending. So that will be worked into the budget. One of the tools we have that we have talked about all along in funding the system is a general obligation bond. So I'm able to play with budget numbers for a lot of different tools. A general obligation bond is not one that I can do. We need a financial professional to do that. We have used Piper Sandler before. Lots of other counties have used them. Before you today is an engagement letter that gets them under contract to start preparing a suite of numbers and what some asks would be to the voters. Looking at it potentially at the earliest in November 2024 bond. And then it's my understanding their payment would come out of the contract that's negotiated when the bonds are approved. So the work to date is free in the near term. So the goal here would be to offset the $27 million general bond ask. Except I don't even know what that number looks like. So that's why we're going to have them. But with a series of grants that we're actively looking for, as you know, $2 million is part of that strategy. So this is the first step in starting to see what our general obligation bond options are. So this is an exciting step in the project, and it is ready for consideration.
Thank you. Questions and comments?
I appreciate this. I agree. It is an exciting step. It occurs to me that we've been talking about and largely listening to you talk about the radio communications system for years, for maybe 4 years, maybe longer.
I've been working on it my tenure here, so 8.
Okay,
7 or
okay.
8.
So, yeah, okay, that makes sense, because the whole time I've been in
But,
office,
yeah.
yes. So but this might be the first time that the public has heard us say, we're gonna try to pay for this with a bond. So, maybe not?
No, we've been talking about that for quite a while.
Okay.
When staff did a road show a couple of years ago, bringing the need to the forefront with the fire department and police department, sheriff's office, their boards and councils, we talked about this as an option.
Great.
It's been a while, but every time we're talking about this, one of the strategies for the construction piece
Yeah.
has always been a general obligation bond. And I don't see, while our fingers are crossed, I don't see us securing $27 million in grant funds. So I think a
Right.
general obligation bond is absolutely one of the tools that we'll be putting forth.
Great, thank you. I'm glad Matt is still here because he could speak to this if he was willing. It's absolutely essential to the safety of our first responders. The system that we have for emergency personnel to be able to communicate is faulty. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And we have to provide that as a community if we want our first responders to be safe and be able to do their jobs. We have to provide it, and we have to figure out how to pay for it. So here we go.
There we go. It's an exciting step.
It is an exciting step, and this is something that residents of Tillamook County need to understand. This is essential to public safety in Tillamook County. Our communication system as it currently stands is old. It's very difficult at times for us to get parts to keep this operating. Maintenance costs are large, and yet most of the organizations in Tillamook County utilize our radio system. The sheriff's office being one of the largest users, but Public Works, the police departments, 911 center it's essential to 911, ambulance service, fire and rescue. So many people rely on our communication system. Because of the topography of Tillamook County, we have a lot of areas that are not covered by our current communication system. Even our new communication system won't allow us 100% coverage in Tillamook County because of our topography. But we have to do everything we can in order to make sure that our first responders do exactly that. They respond to issues within the county. And so it's essential that we move forward with this new communication system. Rachel's been doing a terrific job in coordinating with the sheriff's office and the police departments and fire departments and ambulance service to make sure that we're addressing as many needs as we can. It's going to be a great system once it gets up and operational. It's not going to be inexpensive. I do see that because of the monies available from the federal government for these types of infrastructure projects, we will be able to get some funding for this. But as Rachel said, are we going to be able to get $27 million? Probably not. It's my hope we'll get at least half of that, if not more. But this is something that every year we put this off. It just gets more expensive. We need to do this. We need to make sure our sheriff's office and all the first responders have access to the system. And the sooner we can get this built, the better. So just want to put that out there to the public. This is important not only to the county and the sheriff's office, but it's important to you, the residents of Tillamook County. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely agree. It is really crucial. And technology is such a hard thing because, as you know, you feel like you're always chasing technology. But if you're not and you don't move forward, eventually technology just absolutely stops working. And we can't allow that to happen on our public safety radio system. We have to be moving forward. I appreciate all the work that Rachel's done. This has been a long process of figuring out what sort of a system we need. How do we design that? What kind of money are we talking about? We've gotten our hands and heads around enough of it now to be able to say, we know what kind of system, we have some sense of a cost, and we can actually start taking the steps toward making it happen. So, and this is just a critical piece to do, and having Piper Sandler walk us through the different options for the bond is critical. I mean, nobody wants to pay more taxes than they have to, and that, of course, is how a bond ultimately is repaid. And they can help guide us with, if we go out, if we need 10 million, how much does that return us on a tax basis? If we need 20 million, how much is that? So that we can figure out how to balance the grant writing pieces of it with the bonding pieces of it with the required timeline to get this done. So lots to think about, but this is an important step. So I look forward to getting them on board, and it is a bonus that we don't pay them until we actually go out for a bond. So I like the way they work already. So I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a letter of engagement with Piper Sandler and Company for the general obligation bonds for the radio system construction project, I would move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, we are on to board concerns. Do we have any board concerns today?
Were you planning on talking about the appointment process?
We certainly can. Would you like to lead that out?
I don't mind. So folks are paying attention, following along with the board appointment process for Commissioner Yamamoto's position, because as he said earlier in this meeting, he's announced his intention to retire a year early. And we had 16 people apply to be appointed to Commissioner Yamamoto's position. 15 of those were qualified. The other one hadn't lived here long enough, didn't meet the residency requirement. So we have had informal interviews with almost all of those people. Everyone, it was available to everyone to interview with us. Each of us had a half an hour with 14 people. And the process where we are now is that we have chosen a group of finalists to move forward. We've chosen a group of 6 finalists to move forward, and I'll let one of my fellow commissioners talk about that part, but I just want to say thank you to the community to 16 people who were welcome, who were willing to step up and be of service to Tillamook County in that way. When Dave announced his retirement, we were happy for him, of course. And also, we were thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do? And I was thinking that. And wondering who's going to apply for this. And in fact, 16 people applied for it. And so it's really heartening, the number of people who are willing to be of service in our community. And I'm really grateful for that, and I'm happy that we have a group of 6 very strong candidates to move forward in the process. So I'll let one of you talk about that.
Perfect. So I'm going to address one of the questions that we've been hearing about, which is why don't we have a special election for this? How come you guys are choosing? And since you're choosing, why are you bothering with a public process? So there's actually a number of questions tied into that one. So we are following the Oregon statute. I don't have the number in front of me, but I know I shared it on the radio when I did my conversation on Monday. But there is a statute that says, with the timing being what it is now, we shall appoint a commissioner. So we are moving forward following the Oregon statutes that say we shall appoint. And so that is why it's an appointment, not a special election. Oregon statute calls out what you will do and you follow it. That's how it goes. So we are appointing for that reason. So others have said, if you're appointing, why are you having this public process? Because what we will do next is that we will have a candidates forum in partnership with AAUW, just like we would in a time when there is an election. And then we will have interviews with the commissioners and the candidates that will be public meetings where people can tune in and watch us interview the candidates as well. So we're doing that because we really believe in the transparency piece of this process, and we really believe it's important for the public to get to know the commissioner candidates and ultimately to get to know who will be their commissioner right along with us. This should be a public process. It shouldn't be done in a dark room with a closed door with Commissioner Bell and I just, deciding. This should have the light of day on it, and it will. So that's why we're going through this process, even though it ultimately ends with an appointment by Commissioner Bell and myself. Commissioner Yamamoto will not have the opportunity to participate in the appointment of his replacement, and that is also called out per the ORS. So we didn't just decide to exclude him. He made that decision all on his own when he decided to retire, and the ORS states that. So I think it's important for people to understand that while we had the flexibility to create a process that was right for our community, there were certain pieces of it that were called out in ORS that we couldn't change. And those are the key sort of milestones and steps that we're following. But we did choose to have some light of day on this process and to invite the public to participate with us. So do we have the date for that forum? We do now, right?
Yeah, it'll be in the press release with other details coming out later today.
Perfect. So there will be a press release today that has the date of the forum, the date of the interviews, and how you can listen into those. So that information will all be made public just a little bit later today. So, Commissioners, anything you wanted to add to that?
There's not much. You guys really covered it all. I want to thank Rachel and Bill for really shepherding this process behind the scenes, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's as we move forward. I was gratified that, and although many of them were last minute entries, 16 people really did apply. And that says something about Tillamook County. It does. So I'm looking forward to the process moving forward. However, I will not get a vote, but I will be able to weigh in. And whether the other two commissioners listen to me at all, I don't know. But I will still weigh in as necessary. But stay tuned. This is going to be a fun process. It's going to be something that's important for this county. And I'm hoping that we find someone that will step right in, and this county will not miss a step moving forward. So thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, having 16 people apply was amazing. I know that when we decided to do the expression of interest, we really had no idea. So 16 was fabulous, and many of those individuals have indicated that they are looking forward to running when there is an election. So I think even though we can only appoint one, I think this process has gotten a lot of people thinking, which is really exciting when we look forward to the next election to come.
It's true. One more thing.
Yeah.
We do not intend to release the names of all of the candidates. We are releasing the names of the finalists. And the reason is for their confidentiality. In any executive level recruitment or search, you do not release the names of people who aren't moving on in a finalist capacity if they are currently employed. You don't want to hurt people with a current employer, et cetera. And so those names won't be released.
Yes, Bill.
The thing I found interesting about the statute that you referenced, there were conflict statutes that I've seen before where one commissioner couldn't participate, but if the remaining two couldn't come to an agreement, then the third commissioner could at least vote. So in this instance, it's unique, I think, that you and fellow Commissioner Mary Faith Bell are going to have to, talk it through, and ultimately you're going to have to, agree on somebody, which is kind of an interesting process from my point of view to see that.
I agree. I totally agree. It is interesting. We will have to agree on somebody.
Yeah.
So luckily, there are 6 excellent candidates, and surely we can find someone that we agree on, surely. So I agree. It's fascinating. And just the process of being on the college board, I've been in this situation before where, because those are also elected positions, where somebody resigns from the college board and people apply to be appointed to the college board, and the interviews happen in public, in a public board meeting, and the deliberations also happen in public because those are elected positions, and it's super awkward. And when it's happened, we've said, okay, well, this is the awkward part, now we're gonna talk about you. So you can stay, or you can go, or we'll call you, or you can wait in the hall, you know, but because it's a public process for an elected position, ultimately elected, it all happens in public. And so again, here we go.
Yes, that will definitely be the most challenging piece of this. Because I will just say of the 16 people that applied, the 14 that I interviewed with, they all had something that I was like, I want to talk more about that with them because I think it's important for our community. I think that what they're bringing up, there's some value that I really need to explore with them. So I can imagine as we get to the 6, they all have things to bring, and our challenge will be to figure out in today's world, in today's situation with the things facing us, who's going to be the right person in this moment. And that's gonna be challenging because they all do bring amazing things. Even those that didn't go forward brought things that I need coffee with each and every one of these people to explore that other piece. So, so looking forward to it and terrified of it all at the same time. Okay, commissioners, are there other concerns that we would like to discuss today? No? Okay, let me move on then to our meetings and announcements. The commissioners will hold a board briefing on Wednesday, September 27th, 2023 at 2 p.m. to discuss weekly commissioner updates. The meeting will be held in the Board of Commissioners Meeting Room 106 in the Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon. The teleconference number is 1-971-254-3149. Conference ID 736-023-979#. The Commissioners will hold an executive session on Thursday, October 5th, 2023 at 1 p.m. pursuant to ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub I to conduct a performance evaluation. The executive session will be held in the Board of Commissioners Meeting Room 106 in the Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon. The executive session is not open to the public. Okay, with that, and having had a great meeting with lots of good conversation, we will adjourn today at 10:21 a.m.